What you are about to see will shock you. No camera tricks, no special effects, nothing but incredible moments from the heroic to the tragic on Wild and Crazy Caught on Tape, location Russia. A very drunk St. Petersburg man was on his way home one night and made a gross error in judgment. He decided to take a shortcut across the frozen Neva River. It's late winter, and he's no pixie. So on his way across the river, he stepped on some melting ice and went through, and nearly entirely under. Someone heard his panicked shouting and summoned the police. They began the rescue operation. The poor bugger was so cold and/or drunk that he couldn't hold the rope with his numbed fingers, and the current was pulling him under the ice. With water this cold and blood vessels this dilated, each second counts. The rope slips through the floundering man's fingers, and he nearly gives up. Undeterred and risking their own lives, the rescuers keep fighting to save his life. But it's not easy, and this one could easily go either way. It's not looking good. Here, it looks like they're going to lose him. Perhaps hypothermia is setting in. Then, finally, some progress. They managed to drag him out on the ice. Like a frozen side of beef, he slides across to safety. The man breaks down and starts crying like a child. Then again, he's so cold and so drunk, he's like a whiskey smoothie at this point. So who can blame this sort of behavior? The poor guy can barely stand up. Here it is again. He may not be able to swim or walk, but he can still go sledding. Who needs the sled? So our last video was all about a drunk guy nearly drowning in an icy cold river. Perhaps inspired by that, this drunk guy decides to do more or less the same thing, but in spring, getting plastered and taking a nap face down in the muddy river. He really seems to be sleeping in the river. At this point, it probably goes without saying that he's drunk as a skunk. Police were able to drag him out of the water, but it's anything but easy. Eventually, they get him back on his feet, but he's so drunk he can barely stand on his own legs. They start walking him to the squad car, and the man makes a half-baked attempt to escape. Then, moments later, falls down in a drunken stupor. Hey, that's a comfy sidewalk. It's safe to say this is probably not his proudest moment. The mud is a nice touch, though. And careful. I'm fine. I just wish things would stop spinning so fast. Hello there, camera guy. How you doing? I'm just gonna fall over here for a while. Good night, everybody. Death is always a sobering event. It becomes tragic when there's no reason for it, when it could easily have been avoided. Here, a family is enjoying a day in the country. Way above them, they spy a young climber up on a ridge several hundred feet high, climbing without any friends, ropes, or safety gear. Mouths agape, they watch him with a mix of awe and apprehension. Why is he risking his life like this? Why is he climbing such a dangerous cliff all alone? He's descending, which can often be more dangerous than climbing up. Entranced, each member of the family keeps their eyes and their video camera locked onto him. Sadly, their worst fears are realized when, all of a sudden, the young man loses his grip. It's pretty clear what happens next. The odds of anyone surviving such a rocky fall are virtually zero, and sadly, he dies on impact, along with the reason he was up there in the first place. In Russia, winter makes everything more difficult. It's compounded by the fact that winter often feels like it's about 10 months long. Well, what's a trucker supposed to do if he has to cross the river during the winter, and the nearest bridge is miles and miles out of his way? Well, most truckers in this situation test the ice, calculate their loaded truck's weight, cross their fingers, and carefully drive across. This truck driver either didn't do any of the above or he may not have calculated the load correctly. Either way, it looks like he'll have to wait until spring to raise the truck from the bottom of the Volga. Here we have ice, 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 and watery hole. At least the tracks might prove to be a warning for the next truck that comes this way. And here it is again, the final swan song. Truck pretends it's a submarine, film at 11. Meet Russia's answer to the Hells Angels. Here, nearly 600 bikers from Russia, the former Soviet republics, and much of Western Europe took part in a bikers' festival called Face the Ocean. Nearly half of the local townspeople came out to watch this unusual show. But things went sour. Hey, stop looking at her, fellas. Pretty quickly. Apparently, one of the local bikers decided to show off his riding ability. While doing a difficult trick, he flew off the cycle. The bike continued going, much like a chicken without its head. Most onlookers were able to get out of harm's way, but a 4-year-old boy wasn't so lucky. A motorcycle like this weighs about 450 or 500 pounds. Add the bike's speed into the equation, and you can see how this type of impact would leave a little kid quite badly injured. Among this tranquil alpine beauty lies the deadly and perpetual threat of avalanche. This is the beautiful Tian Shan mountain range in Kazakhstan. Avalanches are a frequent occurrence here and are often deadly. In the autumn of 2005, an avalanche claimed the lives of several members of an experienced climbing party. This footage, happily, was shot some time before this tragic accident. Here, after a small avalanche, a group of climbers dig out their high camp in advance of an approaching storm. The weather report is grim, and they're stuck there to wait out the worst of what's to come. There's also an increased risk of another avalanche. It's hard work, especially at this altitude, knowing that the coming storm may start at any minute. It's hard to breathe at over 16,000 feet. This and the extreme cold help to explain the climbers' persistent coughing. Fortunately, this expedition was a success. All the climbers made it back home safely. The 2005 expedition wasn't so lucky. It's hard to explain what was going through this biker's head here, besides the sight of that truck, that is. After driving straight into a parked vehicle, his biker friends congregate, mostly to make sure the bike is okay. They pretty much leave the helmetless idiot boy alone. Despite the biker's rather moronic behavior, both the bike and his obviously hard head seem to have miraculously escaped without a scratch. Most stuntmen don't consider car tricks all that dangerous. People have been filming car chases and other stunts for almost a century and have figured out most of the kinks. Still, there are those unforeseen moments. On the set of an action film, the stuntmen prepare an old Soviet government car. The car is like a big metal box, huge, incredibly heavy, and very hard to steer. After the explosion, the car flips over unexpectedly and the driver's side door becomes wedged shut. For you lefties out there, here's a flipped version of the shot. The crew rushes to his rescue and are faced with the task of lifting this several thousand-pound inverted behemoth back onto its tires. Eventually, working together, they're able to flip the smoldering monster right side up again. The car drove like a concrete block, but its saving grace was its nearly indestructible body. That's what probably saved the stuntman's life. Take another look. Nice day at work, dear. Oh yeah, you know, same old, same old. There's the stunt, the wreck, the rescue, and the flip. Finally, the stuntman is able to extricate himself thanks to a combination of persistence, luck, the help of his crew, and a very heavy steel frame. Here it is again. And again, and again, and again, and again. And wave to the crowd. A fire has broken out on the 4th floor of an apartment building. A woman is trapped in the burning apartment. She gets to a window, the last source of breathable air and her last hope of survival, and calls for help. Firefighters arrive and set up their longest ladder, which ends up being several feet too short to reach the burning apartment. But we'll get to that problem in a minute. First, the woman has to figure out how to get herself out of her 4th floor inferno. She tries to open the window. The firemen tell her what to do. She can't seem to get the window open, and the fire is only getting hotter and smokier. She doesn't have a lot of time here. The rescuers hold their breath. Demonstrating uncanny and unexpected acrobatic agility, the woman flips herself out of the top part of the window and lands on the ledge. Under normal circumstances, to expect a woman of this age and in this shape to do such a feat would be unthinkable. But this is not a normal situation, and her life is on the line. She's inching her way down toward the ladder, several feet down the bare wall. It's a tricky business, and there are no handholds and precious little room for error. She slips, slides, and somehow gets her feet on the top rung of the ladder. So far, so good. A rescuer climbs the ladder to try and help her down, but there's not much he can do. She's frozen still. Perhaps she's had a moment to let her predicament sink in. Her home is in flames, and she's 4 stories up, perched precariously on top of a ladder with nothing to grab hold of. A small crowd has gathered on the street to watch the unfolding drama. For several tense minutes, nothing happens. She's too petrified to move. Perhaps she looked down and realized how high up she is. The rescuer decides to give her some room. Meanwhile, the fire intensifies, spitting out hot jets of gas and smoke. The glass in the next window shatters due to the enormous heat. The poor woman is barely able to stay where she is. However, the explosion serves as a wake-up call, and she decides to move. Still, one wrong step will mean almost certain death. In a few seconds, she's out of danger and firmly on the ladder. Moments later, she's on the ground, where she'll be treated for smoke inhalation. An incredible rescue. Let's see it again. The window, the incredible flip, the exploding window, and to safety. This young daredevil belongs to a group of extreme risk takers called the Gloom Team. Here, he's pouring a flammable liquid all over his clothes and rolling over a raging fire. The liquid has worked too well, and he's now basically on fire. At the very last moment, he manages to tear off his burning clothes and escape. This time, he was lucky. He walked away with only minor burns to his face and hair. But please, don't try stunts like this at home. He's lucky he wasn't seriously burned, disfigured, or even killed. This is the problem with these sorts of groups. The stunts get increasingly dangerous as they try to outdo each other.